Welcome to Sunny's Mindset Lab. Today we have a very special guest, David Goggins, the author of Can't Hurt Me. We're diving into his unbelievable journey of resilience, discipline, and mental toughness, and exploring the tools anyone can use to push far beyond their limits.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to walk your listeners through the lessons from Can't Hurt Me, because everything I talk about, every challenge, every mindset shift is something anyone can apply to transform their life.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive, isn't it? Transformation. Because when you read your story, it's not just a memoir. It's a blueprint for forging what you call mental armor.
That's right.
So we're going to go right back to the beginning, back to the roots of that change, starting from this place of really intense trauma and self-destruction to uncover the specific, almost brutal methods you use to build that armored mind.
That's the only place you can start. You can't build a bulletproof house on a cracked foundation. People see the end result. They see the seal, the ultra runner. They skip the part that matters.
The hell that forged the mentality.
That's it. They skip the hell.
Okay, so let's start there, the foundation. You describe growing up in Williamsville, New York, in this just intense contrast. On the surface, it's the American dream. Leafy streets, doctors, executives. But your home, on a street literally called Paradise Road, you describe as hell.
It was pure hell. I mean, a cage hidden right there in plain sight. My father, Trinus, he was the devil. He ran that house. And the second the neighbors were gone, that friendly, smiling guy he showed the public, he was gone.
It just vanished.
Vanished. And it morphed into pure malice. Me, my mother, my brother, we were just dollar signs to him. That was it. He was the king of his own little kingdom, and the family business, Skateland, that was his tool for total control.
And you were working there at 6, 7 years old? The way you describe it, it sounds less like a family business and more like, I don't know, forced labor.
It was. 6 or 7 years old, every single night, 7 days a week, we'd have this quick dinner in the back office, and then at 7 p.m., doors open, showtime. I was running the skate rental station by myself. I wasn't even tall enough to see over the counter.
Wow.
Had a little step stool I carried around like a crutch, just so people could see my face. And after the doors closed at 10, that's when the real work started.
The cleaning.
Yeah, the real work. We're talking scrubbing toilets where people had intentionally smeared feces on the walls, fishing bloody tampons out of shit-filled toilets, scraping gum off the rink floor with spatulas.
Unbelievable.
And we wouldn't be done until just before midnight. We just, collapse on this nasty office sofa trying to sleep while the vase from whatever party was left over was still shaking the ceiling. That was my childhood. That was the daily grind.
That level of trauma, it led to your mother planning this incredible escape. But even in that moment of freedom, you saw her psychological armor just completely shatter.
She was a genius. I mean, she had contingencies for everything. She got us into this old beat-up Volvo, the one car he'd never ride in, so he wouldn't even think to look for it. We hid down this dirt road at her friend Betty's house, right under his nose, while he's speeding down the highway looking for us.
So she was composed, in control.
She was holding it all together. A mask. But then, maybe 90 miles out of Buffalo, that old Volvo starts burning oil. I mean, huge plumes of black smoke pouring out the back.
And that's the breaking point.
That was it. I saw her real buried terror for the first time. She'd been stuffing that fear down for years, but that one little mechanical problem, it broke her. Her eyes were just wide open, totally undone. And she looks at me as a little kid and says, "What do I do?" And it was devastating. Because I realized right then the weight of fear she had been carrying, it hadn't just affected me, it had infected her, to her core.
And it's clear that toxic stress, that fear, it followed you. When you moved to Indiana, it had these immediate, crippling academic consequences. The trauma didn't just disappear.
No, it was a disaster waiting to happen. It wasn't gone. It was just dormant. And school, with all its structure, it just reactivated it. The threat of being put in special ed, which to me, that meant you're branded stupid for life, that was the trigger.
And that's when the stutter started.
Almost overnight. A debilitating stutter. My whole thought-to-speech process was just jammed up with anxiety. And you got to imagine, I'm the only black kid in class. I'm already dealing with that. And now I'm the dumbest kid, too. Can't read English. Forget about Spanish. I was so terrified of being exposed that I found a way out.
Cheating
my ass off on every single test, every assignment. I thought I was solving the problem. Keeping the teachers happy, keeping my mom happy.
But you were really just playing yourself.
I was gaming myself. That's it. I was creating this illusion that I was competent, but really I was just crystallizing my own ignorance. I was taking the path of least resistance, and that path leads straight to a dead end.
So if someone listening right now identifies with that,
Mhm.
that bad hand, that past trauma, and they want to start this transformation,
Mhm.
what is that first, most painful step?
Challenge number one. You have to confront your dirty laundry. This is not negotiable. Get a journal, notes app on your phone, I don't care what it is, and you write out every single piece of that painful story in minute detail.
Not just a summary.
No, don't be bland. If you were hurt,
Oh.
you tell the story. You give that pain a shape. You write down every insecurity, every failure, every time you took the easy way out.
Why so much detail? Why write down the excuses?
Because you're about to absorb its power and flip that shit. This list of excuses, all these very good reasons why you shouldn't amount to a goddamn thing,
Yeah.
that list is going to be the fuel for your ultimate success. You have to look at it, acknowledge it was real, but know that you survived it. That act, that starts to empower you. You take the poison, you turn it into jet fuel.
That fuel becomes critical because the trauma just kept compounding. After moving back to Brazil, Indiana, you faced new roadblocks. Overt racism, which just amplified the insecurities you were already battling.
Yeah, I was already insecure. Buffalo was an inferno, but Brazil was like an incubator for all that post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
I looked different, but inside I hadn't changed at all. Then the racism hit.
The Pizza Hut story.
I was at Pizza Hut with this girl, Pam. Her father storms in, locks eyes with her from across the whole restaurant, and says loud enough for everyone to hear, "I don't want to ever see you sitting with this nigger again."
That's just a brutal public humiliation from an adult.
Public, from a grown man. It hurt way worse than any punch. And a few days later, I find the word spray painted on my car at school. So that hatred from the outside, it just confirmed the story I was telling myself on the inside, that I was worthless.
And right around then, you lost the one positive male role model you had, Wilmoth Irving.
Wilmoth was everything. He was successful, he was stable, he gave my mom pride, he taught me how to play basketball, he was hope. And the day after Christmas, he pulls into his garage and gets shot 5 times in the chest.
Yeah.
A kill shot between the eyes. That wasn't just sadness. That was a double dose of death trauma, right when I needed a foundation the most.
That just sounds like a cascade. And it led to a total downfall. You flunked out of high school, you were doctoring your grades, and this athletic Air Force recruit transformed into a nearly 300-pound man working a terrible job.
I lost all my incentive. I got cut from the basketball team, not because I wasn't good, but because I skipped the workouts, I lacked commitment, I got kicked out of the house, I gone from a strong, fast, 175-pound kid to this, almost 300 pounds. And the reason for the weight, the size, it was simple.
What was it?
Being big hit David Goggins. I looked intimidating on the outside, like some low-budget thug. But inside I knew I was a pussy. I was completely soft. The size was just an emotional shield.
That path of self-deception leads right to what you call the accountability mirror moment. It happens when you're at your absolute rock bottom job.
Yeah, Ecolab duty. I was a cockroach sniper. Past midnight, baiting rat traps, spraying poison, crawling through vents. I was just numb, miserable. The only thing I liked was the gas mask. Because it hid my face, it was the perfect escape.
But then the universe sends this undeniable wake-up call.
I pulled up to this restaurant, and you could smell death. A dead rat. I go inside, I'm spraying up in this little gap in the wall, and I hit the motherlode. Suddenly, it's a storm of roaches raining down from the ceiling on my head, my neck. The floor is moving.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I burst outside, trying to get fresh air, go to the dumpster to throw out the dead rats, and there's a massive live raccoon in there, hissing at me. And I just stood there. 300 pounds, zombie on the graveyard shift, standing between a rain of roaches and a feral raccoon. And I realized mediocrity would have been a promotion. I was at the absolute dregs of life, but I was finally awake.
And you went home that night and you had that confrontation in the mirror.
Yeah, wiped the steam off the mirror and delivered the truth. This wasn't a self-love pep talk. This was about abolishing the ego. I looked at that 300-pound reflection and I just said it. Look at you. Why do you think the Air Force wants your punk ass? You stand for nothing. You are an embarrassment.
You had to be brutal.
Had to be. It was the only way to get right. I had to turn all that negativity, which I had earned, into jet fuel. Being soft with yourself in that moment, it's not going to work.
You formalized this into challenge number 2, the accountability mirror. How can listeners apply this cruel to be kind approach without it just becoming destructive self-talk?
That's the key distinction. We're not talking about tearing yourself down for things you can't change. We're talking about actionable flaws, laziness, ignorance, lack of effort. So you go by Post-it notes and you tag up your mirror, write down your insecurities, your dreams, your goals. If you see someone who needs more education, you write, you need to work your ass off because you're intellectually lazy. not because you're stupid. You have to own the truth.
So if you're overweight, you literally write,
You're fucking fat. Own it. But the note can't stop there. The next one has to be, you're going to run 3 miles tomorrow and track every calorie. You abolish the ego, and you immediately attach a corrective action. The dirty mirror shows you the truth. Stop ignoring it.
that moment of truth led to something that sounds physically impossible. Losing over 100 pounds in under 3 months for SEAL training. You could only run a quarter mile at the start. How did you even approach that?
I had to accept the very real possibility that I might literally die from the effort. I told myself, this time, you will not quit, no matter the pain. There was no blueprint for it. I had to create one, and my framework was to flip my depression into fuel. All that self-doubt, all that anxiety, that wasn't a reason to curl up and die. It was proof that it was finally on a mission.
And the physical side was just nonstop suffering.
Constantly hungry, running on fumes. Dinner was one meal. A grilled chicken breast, some sautéed vegetables, and like a thimble of rice. That's it. Then 2 hours on the stationary bike every night, sweating in garbage bags to cut water weight. I was betting everything on myself.
And the first real test was academic, the ASVAB test. With your learning disabilities, that must have been terrifying.
I guessed on at least 10 questions. I couldn't read fast enough. I was sure I'd failed. I couldn't wait for the recruiter to call, so I went back to the testing center, and I made the administrator break every rule in the book to give me my score right then.
And you passed.
65 overall. But the 50 I needed in the specific section, I got it. And that feeling, it was just pure purpose. I left that building. It was a frozen Indiana night, and I just started sprinting down the Moonin Trail, like Rocky in Philly, running from a past that no longer defined me.
For someone listening who isn't trying to lose 100 pounds, how do they apply this impossible task mindset in a sustainable way?
Challenge number 3. Step outside your comfort zone. This is about callousing your mind on a micro level. It's not about changing your life overnight. It's about moving the needle, bit by bit. Get out your journal, write down everything you don't like to do, especially the things you know are good for you.
Simple things.
Simple things. Making your bed, doing the dishes, ironing your clothes. Now, do one of them every single day. It sounds small, but you're training your mind to accept necessary discomfort.
And then you escalate.
Exactly. Once that's comfortable, you increase the difficulty. You run 2 miles. Now you run 5. Now 10. We all focus on our strengths. This is about making your weaknesses your strengths, one small, uncomfortable task at a time. So when the real impossible task shows up, your mind is already trained to fight.
That training ground then becomes a BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. This is where the mind is forged in actual hell, and you went through it 3 times.
Yeah, my journey wasn't a straight line. The first time in pararescue, my fear of water became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I quit. And that unleashed what I call the quitting disease. I buried the shame by powerlifting, eating, and ballooning back up to 300 pounds.
So when you went back for BDS class 235, you were determined not to quit.
I pushed through Hell Week with duct tape shins and double pneumonia.
Wait, double pneumonia? During Hell Week?
Yeah. Hell Week is 130 hours of sustained psychological and physical abuse. It's designed to find your breaking point. I was spitting up phlegm and mucus the whole time. The fluid in my lungs, it never fully receded. I was spitting that stuff into Gatorade bottles for years after. I paid a heavy price, but I did not quit. That set a new baseline.
And that experience, enduring that level of suffering, is what led to your most famous concept, the 40% rule.
Right. When your mind is screaming at you to stop, when the pain is at its peak and you think you have absolutely nothing left, you are only at 40% of your total capacity.
So that voice telling you you're done, that's a lie.
It's your brain's governor. It's a safety switch. Your brain's job is survival, so it registers pain and fear, and it signals you to stop way before you're actually at your physical limit. The key is to recognize that voice for what it is. It's the governor talking, not reality. There's 60% more in the tank behind that wall.
You paired this with another concept, taking souls. This sounds aggressive, like a battlefield tactic.
It is. It's about gaining a tactical advantage through sheer defiance and supreme effort. It's a mind game you play on your opponent, but more importantly on yourself. You demonstrate such an unmatched level of toughness that you mentally break them, or you break your own internal resistance.
Can you give us an example from Hell Week?
My second Hell Week, the class was just broken. But we managed to steal the schedule. We knew the instructor, Psycho Pete, was going to try and break us with log PT in the middle of the night. So we took control. At 2 a.m., before they could even tell us to move, we grabbed the logs and started humping them. Later, on a run, I got right up next to Psycho Pete in the surf and just started humming the theme song from Platoon.
That is pure defiance.
It was defiance, and it empowered the whole class. We were going hard when they expected us to be defeated. That action, taking control, showing our spirit was unbroken,
Yeah.
that's what broke the instructor's spirit. We seized the mental edge. That's taking a soul.
So how does the listener apply that? Someone in an office, not BUDS. What's the civilian version of taking souls?
Challenge number 4 is excellence. You apply it by targeting excellence, not malice. Pick a competitive situation right now. A big project, a client presentation, a promotion you want. I want you to work harder on that than you have on anything, ever. Whatever standard they set, you aim to surpass it by 10 times.
So it's not about being defiant to your boss.
No. Sustained, undeniable excellence is the ultimate form of taking souls. When you consistently deliver a quality of work that makes your competition realize they can't even touch your effort, you've won.
Yeah.
You earn their respect by just flat out outworking them.
And that sustained effort, that's what builds the calloused mind. What's the difference between a mind that's just been through hardship and one that's truly calloused?
Initial hardship, abuse, failure,
Yeah.
that can lead to a victim's mentality that keeps your mind soft, closed off. A calloused mind comes from choosing to fight through those horrible situations again and again and staying open to more suffering. You use the pain to bury the victim under layers of sweat and hard flesh. It's not about being numb. It's about being durable.
You had a clear moment where you felt this shift during the underwater knot-tying evolution with Psycho Pete.
He was looking for payback. He picked me for that evolution because he knew I had a bad knee and I was struggling just to tread water. And he challenged me to tie the last 3 knots on one breath. I didn't have to do it, but I couldn't let him have the satisfaction.
So what happened when you went under?
He was splashing water in my face, trying to make me panic. But when I went under, instead of rushing, I looked right at him, and I smiled. The pain was still there, but the feeling of panic, of blacking out, it just went away. I was energized.
So the fight or flight response kicked in differently?
Exactly. My calloused mind channeled that sympathetic nervous system response into focused adrenaline and clarity, not panic. I got a second wind. I tied those knots at a leisurely pace, glaring at him the whole time. He was the one who was desperate for a breath when he surfaced. I had broken through, and I completely took his soul.
That's incredible. So it really is about managing that self-doubt in the moment.
Doubt is always going to be in the back seat. You just can't let it in the cockpit. The strategy is self-talk, and it's backed by evidence. You have to ask yourself, have I been through something harder than this? For me, the answer was always yes. Remembering you've survived before, it shifts the conversation in your head from quitting to fighting.
And that ability to endure was immediately tested outside the military when you got into ultra running. This came from the loss of 19 Special Operations warriors in Operation Red Wings.
Yeah, that was the worst loss to hit the SEALs at the time. I knew the guys on that mission. The pain was just immense. I had to do something to help their families. And ultra running was the only thing I could think of that was insane enough to get public attention and raise real money.
So you called the organizer of the Badwater Ultramarathon, Chris Kostman, and he basically challenged you to prove yourself.
He thought I was just another pretender. He told me if I wanted to run Badwater, I first had to run the San Diego one-day race, 100 miles, with 3 days' notice and 0 training.
And you did it. You ran 101 miles. But the description of that race is just, it's a litany of total physical collapse.
Every domino fell.
Yeah.
Stress fractures in my shins, felt like venom in my bones. I was hocking up this thick brown mucus. Around mile 69, I lost touch with reality. A tiny 7-foot ramp, like a driveway, buckled my knees, and my mind was just screaming at me, why the fuck are you still doing this to yourself?
So when your mind is actively fighting you like that, dragging up all that old garbage, how do you fight back? This is where you introduce the cookie jar.
I realized that still being in the fight wasn't a miracle. It was a result of choices I had made. So I needed a system to remind myself of who the fuck I was at my best. The cookie jar is a mental bank of all your victories, big and small. You intentionally pull out these cookies in the heat of battle. It's a tool to override the governor.
And it's more than just a memory, right? You're tapping into the emotional state of that victory.
Exactly. When you vividly relive graduating BUDS or that sprint on the Moonin Trail, you tap into the emotional and physical state of that win. And that sparks a physiological response. It's a shot of adrenaline, a second wind. It's real fuel in the tank that comes from your own psychological history. I just kept digging into my past and my fractured, bloody feet just kept pounding.
So even a small victory, like finishing a tough workout, can become a cookie.
Absolutely. If you don't have big wins yet, the small ones are everything. You overcome procrastination on a report. You savor that, relive it. You store that emotional energy so you can use it when pain or self-doubt kicks in later. It's proactive psychological defense.
That race led you deeper into the ultra circuit. Hurt 100, bad water. You're consistently running on broken legs. It sounds like your mind's tolerance for suffering was just expanding.
It's like a boxer. The first punch knocks you out. After 10 years, you can take 12 rounds of getting beat down. The punch isn't any weaker, but your mind is calloused. Your internal software knows you can take way more punishment. The governor just moves further and further out.
And for these races, you had a detailed visualization process.
I visualized the suffering in advance. For Badwater, I didn't just see the finish line. I closed my eyes, and I tried to feel the bone-crushing pain of the 9-mile asphalt descent. I tried to feel it in my quads before I ever got there. It doesn't replace the work, but it prepares the mind for the shock.
And even with all that prep, you had this biblical test during the final miles of Badwater.
I was exhausted, covered in salt, and then the horseflies started dive-bombing me, batting my thighs, crawling in my ears. It was a nightmare. My crew was swatting them off for 8 miles, and I just realized even this external maddening chaos could not stop me, couldn't penetrate the armor. I just kept marching.
That determination brings us to challenge number 7, the 5-10% rule. How do listeners start removing that governor without hurting themselves?
It has to be incremental. When you reach that point of exhaustion where your mind screams stop, that's the governor talking at 40%. All you have to do is push 5 to 10% further. If you do 100 push-ups in a workout, do 105 or 110. If you run 30 miles a week, run 33 next week. It's about building a consistent habit of resisting that first urge to quit. That's how you make it sustainable.
It's relentless, and that pursuit didn't stop. After the SEAL Trident, after becoming an ultra athlete, you went to Ranger School. Why push to be, as you call it, uncommon amongst the uncommon?
Because greatness evaporates. It's like oil in a hot pan. If you don't keep the heat on, it's gone. You have to stay in constant pursuit. Ranger School is a new fire. It was a place where a Navy SEAL was a nobody with a hell of a lot to prove, and I wanted that. I wanted to be around people who thought and trained like that 24/7.
And you proved that on day 1 when you recited the entire Ranger Creed from memory.
The RI was livid. He pointed at me, the old Navy, and challenged me, certain I wouldn't know it. But I'd been studying that creed for months. I knew the standard, and I knew I had to exceed it. So I cleared my throat, and I recited all 6 stanzas, loud and defiant.
He must have been floored.
He just shook his head. But it was a massive burden, leading 100 men while dealing with my own shit, like the risk of sickle cell trait in the cold. I chose not to wear the red dog tags that identified the risk. I didn't want any special treatment. I led from the front.
How does that apply to the average person trying to avoid stagnation?
Challenge number 9, starting at 0. The refrigerator is never full. You have to always be willing to embrace ignorance and become the dumb fuck in the classroom again. That is essential for growth. You're a scuba diver. Learn to free dive. You're a successful executive. Learn a new language. Start rock climbing. You have to constantly expand, or you're shrinking.
The cost of this relentless pursuit was immense, though. You eventually discovered you had a congenital heart defect.
Yeah, in 2009, my heart rate would just spike uncontrollably. The cardiologist found an atrial septal defect, a hole in my heart. I was born with it.
And the implication of that is just staggering. You accomplished all this while operating at a massive handicap.
Exactly. My whole life, I'd only been getting about half the oxygen my body needed. I had learned to live in perpetual low oxygen distress. It explained everything. The pneumonia and BUDS, the chronic fatigue. I never felt great. I just learned to endure it.
And even after learning that, after surgery, you immediately went after the world pull-up record.
The broken body still had a lot of fight left. But that first attempt was a gruesome, devastating failure. I fell 800 pull-ups short.
You didn't just fail, you destroyed your body.
My palm looked like raw hamburger, skin filleted open down to the nerve. And internally, the doctor diagnosed rhabdomyolysis, muscle breakdown, leaking protein into my blood, risking kidney failure. We snuck out the back door like criminals. I was emotionally wasted.
How do you recover from a public failure like that?
Immediate autopsy. I was already doing my after-action report in my head on the table. But the real motivation came from my mother. In the ER, she looked at me raw and defeated, and she just said, "You're going to do this again."
She didn't offer comfort. She offered a path back.
That's it. You need people who will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. She didn't pity me. She held me accountable to my own standard. I scheduled the next attempt before I even saw the ER doctor.
The ultimate challenge for many people is just consistency. You were training at this insane level while working full-time. The number one excuse is, I don't have time.
Then you're wasting time. You have to win the morning and eviscerate the dead space in your life. My gear was laid out the night before. I was out the door after 4 a.m. for a 6 to 10 mile run. Bike 25 miles to work. Run 4 to 6 miles at lunch. Bike 25 miles home.
That schedule is exhausting, just hearing it.
By 7 p.m., I'd run 15 miles, biked 50 miles, and worked a full day. You have to block out your time ruthlessly. If you say you don't have time, you need to do an AAR on your daily schedule. I guarantee you'll find it.
But eventually that pressure led to a final physical breakdown. What was the piece you had been ignoring?
Flexibility. I always thought it meant a decrease in performance. But years of abuse had shredded my body. I'd lost 2 inches in height. My spine was compressed. My hips were locked. I had just taped up the pain and moved on.
So you had to find a new obsession. Stretch it.
It was humiliating at first. I couldn't even sit Indian style. My knees were up by my ears. But I committed. I started stretching 6 hours a day for months, then years. It became my new, painful, essential task. And that commitment is what finally reversed the decline. It taught me that greatness requires holistic ownership, not just brute force.
So if a listener fails, what's the final comprehensive process they need to adopt?
It's total ownership. Conduct a brutally honest after-action report. Write down every single thing you can fix. Find the treasure in the wreckage. Then you consult your accountability mirror and you schedule the next attempt immediately. This life is a fucking mind game. You have to dominate your thought process with all these tools. Own it.
You spent years being driven by rage, but then, lying sick in bed in 2014, you found a different kind of clarity. A shift from external validation to something internal. What was that realization?
I finally accepted that I was the sum total of the obstacles I'd overcome. I looked at my destroyed body, the scars, the broken joints, and I realized it was my biggest trophy. It was proof of the fight. And in that moment, the rage just let go. I understood that younger kid who cheated. He did it because he was ashamed and desperate for acceptance. I stopped judging him so harshly.
You traded rage for internal greatness.
True connection comes when painfully saturates your mind and you push past the panic. The external world just zeroes out. You become single-pointed. And the goal is that internal greatness. Stop trying to be defined by your trauma or your talent or your fear. Define yourself only by the relentless effort you put in to escape those boundaries every single day.
David, thank you for sharing these powerful and challenging lessons from Can't Hurt Me. This conversation will push so many listeners to confront their limits and rise above them.
Stay hard. And remember, you're in charge of your own transformation.
This has been Sunny's Mindset Lab. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next episode.